I'm Samantha Wilson, 30 years old, and a successful graphic designer running my own studio in Chicago. But in my family, I've always been the invisible middle child, never quite good enough. Last Christmas, at the dinner table, my mother stared at me and said what she'd hinted at for years: "You're the most useless child we have." The room went silent. That's when I finally stood up for myself. I'd love to hear where you're reading from. Drop it in the comments below. If holiday family drama hits home, give this a like and follow for more stories about setting boundaries with toxic relatives. Growing up in suburban Milwaukee, I felt like a background character in my family's story. My older brother, Michael, was the golden child. Tall, athletic, and charming, his football talent made him our town's pride. Every weekend, my parents drove hours to cheer at his games while I sat with a book, trying to stay warm. His trophies filled our living room, and dinner talk centered on his latest wins. My older sister, Sarah, was right behind him in the family pecking order. To my mother, she was the perfect daughter, living out traditional values. Sarah married her high school sweetheart at 23, had her first kid at 25, and slipped effortlessly into the role of wife and mom. My mother always brought her up on our calls. Sarah made an incredible pot roast for her in-laws, or Sarah's redoing the nursery herself. So creative. Then there was Julia, my younger sister, 7 years my junior. From the day she was born, my parents doted on her, indulging her every whim. She could do no wrong. When she dropped out of college, they called it finding herself. When she maxed out her credit card, they paid it off without a blink. And me? I was Samantha, stuck in the middle. Not the star athlete, not the perfect daughter, not the pampered baby. I was quiet, creative, lost in my world of drawing and design. My A's and B's never got the praise Michael's game scores did. My art won school contests, but my certificates never made it to the fridge next to Julia's finger paintings. My mother, Nancy, shaped our family's dynamic. Raised in a strict home, she had rigid ideas about success and roles. She was quick to criticize and compare. When I said I'd study graphic design in college, she snapped, "What kind of real job is that? It's just drawing pictures." Even when I landed internships and jobs at top firms, she brushed them off as not real work, like your father's. Nothing I did was ever enough. Making the dean's list? She'd ask why I didn't get some other student's scholarship. Got a promotion? She'd wonder why it took so long. Her rare praise always had a sting: "Your apartment's nice, but it must be lonely living alone at your age." My father, Robert, was a quieter letdown. An accountant, he seemed to care about me but couldn't stand up to my mother. He'd murmur, "Now, Nancy," during her harshest critiques, then back off when she turned on him. Sometimes, he'd slip me encouraging notes or small gestures, but only when she wasn't watching. As I grew older, our bond faded. Our calls were brief, stuck on weather or news, never diving deep. I'd catch sadness in his eyes sometimes, like he knew something was off but didn't know how to fix it. Big moments in my life showed how unevenly my family treated us. When I graduated college with honors in graphic design, neither parent showed up. My mother had a can't-miss garden club meeting. My father cited a work emergency. I sat alone at the ceremony, watching other families celebrate, pretending their absence didn't sting. At 26, I landed a major client and got featured in a design magazine. I shared the news excitedly at a Sunday dinner, but my mother barely glanced at the article before shifting to Michael's new sales job. My moment was forgotten by dessert. Even family photos told the story. In the big portrait in my parents' living room, Michael and Sarah stood behind our seated parents, Julia on my mother's lap, while I was off to the side, like an afterthought. Year after year, holiday after holiday, the pattern held. My achievements were downplayed, my presence a bother. Family events turned into acts of invisibility. I'd help in the kitchen, snap photos of everyone else, and listen to my siblings' stories while no one asked about mine. Still, I craved their approval, some sign I mattered to them. I kept showing up, hoping things would change. By my early 30s, that hope was wearing thin. My family never saw, or chose not to see, the life I'd built, piece by piece. Graphic design wasn't an easy road, but it fulfilled me. After college, I started at a small agency, barely covering rent and loans. I worked late nights and weekends, building my portfolio and taking freelance gigs. My tiny apartment was my workspace, my drafting table crowding the room. I lived on ramen and coffee, pouring any extra cash into better software and gear. Those first 2 years were rough. Rejections piled up from bigger agencies and clients wanting more experience. But I kept at it, sharpening my skills and networking. I focused on branding for small businesses, helping them stand out against bigger competitors. By 28, I'd saved enough to rent a small commercial space and launched Wilson Design Works. It was just a loft with big windows, room for me and, later, 2 part-time staff. But it was mine, built on grit and determination. The big break came with Meridian Breweries, a regional craft beer company aiming for a national rebrand. I poured everything into their project, crafting a visual identity that kept their local roots while appealing broadly. The campaign boosted their sales 35% in the first quarter and earned industry praise. That win opened doors. Within 2 years, I had 3 national brands and dozens of regional clients. I moved to a bigger office, hired 5 full-time staff, and saw my work in design magazines. I spoke at industry conferences, and my studio hit over $500,000 in yearly revenue, known for creativity and dependability. I was financially secure in ways my family never realized. I owned my Chicago condo outright, had a solid retirement account, and kept a hefty emergency fund. I paid myself a modest salary, pouring most of my studio's profits back into growing the business year after year. My personal life was rich, too, but my family never asked about it. I'd been with Thomas, a kind architect I met at a design conference, for almost 3 years. We weren't rushing to marry, but our relationship was strong, built on respect and shared values. Thomas got my family's struggles and gave me the support I never got at home. I'd built a tight circle of friends who truly saw me. Lisa, my college bestie, lived in my building, and we shared weekly dinners. My studio team felt like a second family, celebrating birthdays and wins together, always there through tough times. I found joy in new hobbies. Wednesday evenings, I took pottery classes, loving the calm of shaping clay with my hands. Once a month, I volunteered at a youth art program, helping kids from tough backgrounds find their creative voice. I also started hiking, spending weekends on trails outside the city with Thomas or friends. But despite my full life, a part of me still ached for my family's approval. I wanted them to see me for who I was, not the useless, middle child they'd labeled me as years ago. That longing trapped me in a toxic pattern. I became the family's financial safety net, always ready to help. It started small, a loan for Dad's car repairs. Then I covered part of Julia's tuition when my parents said they were strapped. The requests grew bigger and more frequent, especially from my mother, who handled the family's money. The biggest burden was Michael, though no one else knew. Despite his polished image, my brother made bad financial choices, risky investments, lavish spending. 3 years ago, he begged for help, facing bankruptcy and losing his home. I cleared his urgent debts and set up a repayment plan, but he barely paid me back. I also funded family events, like holiday dinners or birthdays, letting my parents take the credit. When Dad needed a suit for a cousin's wedding, I bought it quietly, letting him think it was a bargain. When Mom wanted new kitchen appliances, I made them appear as a family gift, though I paid alone. I gave without fanfare, but my family took it for granted. The more I helped, the more they expected it. My mother acted like my support was owed, not a choice, as if it was payback for raising me. Even with my success, I felt small around them. I'd shrink back to that invisible middle child, craving their approval. I downplayed my achievements to avoid seeming boastful, took their criticism silently, and buried my hurt to keep the peace. It was draining. Thomas often asked why I put up with it, why I went to family events that left me empty, why I kept bailing them out without thanks. I'd say they were family, and I cared, but each year, their dismissals and demands wore me down. My resentment grew, and my self-respect demanded change. The financial dynamic with my family turned toxic over time. What began as occasional help became an expected, unacknowledged crutch. My mother's calls had a pattern. She'd ask about my life with no interest, then sigh about some money issue. The roof's leaking again, or Dad's meds cost more now. She never asked for cash outright, just hinted heavily until I offered, letting her pretend she hadn't asked. After I helped, she'd brush it off. That's what family does, or worse, it's the least you owe us for raising you. No one said thank you or recognized my sacrifice. My help was treated as a duty, not a gift. Michael called with temporary money troubles, promising to repay me next month for years. Sarah didn't ask directly but grumbled about kid costs until I bought gifts or funded their education. Julia assumed I'd cover her emergencies, like car repairs or rent after overspending. Family gatherings grew harder to bear. Every holiday brought subtle jabs and comparisons that left me feeling small. Last Thanksgiving was brutal. Minutes after I arrived, Mom eyed me and asked if I'd given up on dating since I came alone. I mentioned my serious relationship with Thomas, but she called him just another boyfriend and wondered why I couldn't close the deal like Sarah. At dinner, I tried sharing news about a big new client, but Mom cut me off to ask Sarah about her kids' school. My moment was ignored. Later, while washing dishes with my mother, she said it was probably for the best I stuck to my little drawing business, since I wasn't cut out for motherhood anyway. I left with a migraine and vowed to skip Christmas. But as December neared, guilt and hope clashed inside me. Maybe this time it'd be different. Maybe they'd finally see me. At Mom's birthday dinner in early December, the same old routine played out. We ate at a pricey restaurant I paid for, but it was billed as Dad's treat. Mom talked non-stop about my siblings' successes, ignoring mine. When I brought up my feature in a national design magazine, she switched to Julia's new internship, her third try at a career. As Christmas neared, my anxiety spiked. I thought up excuses to skip it but decided to go after talking with Thomas. "Stand up for yourself, Angie," he said gently but firmly. "You're not that insecure teen anymore. You're a successful business owner who deserves respect." "They won't change," I argued, pacing our living room. "Going means more of the same." "Then change how you react," he replied. "You hope they'll see your worth, but show them you know it, whether they do or not." His advice lingered as Christmas approached. I spent hours picking thoughtful, pricey gifts, wrapping them flawlessly, hoping the packaging would win their appreciation. I booked hair and makeup, picked an outfit screaming success and confidence, ditching my usual blend-in style. The day before Christmas, Michael called, the last straw. He sounded tense, whispering like he was hiding. "Angie, hate to ask now, but I'm in a bind," he started. I shut my eyes, knowing what followed. "The bank's threatening foreclosure unless I pay by year's end. Need $15,000 to hold them off till my February commission." $15,000 wasn't small, even for me. It was expansion money for my studio. "That's big, Michael," I said cautiously. "You haven't repaid the last loan." "I know," he rushed. "But this is my house. Where'd Diane and the kids go? Please, I'm begging. Don't tell Mom and Dad, they think I'm thriving." After a pause, I agreed to send it, tallying more unlikely to return cash. Hanging up, I called Lisa to vent. "Stop being their ATM," she said straight after hearing. "They're adults, Samantha. Let them handle their choices. But let Michael's family go homeless? Maybe real fallout would push better decisions," she shot back. "When will you demand respect? They take endlessly without basic thanks." That night, prepping for bed, Lisa's words mixed with Thomas's. I finally faced my buried anger. Tired of being the family wallet, of dismissed success, of shrinking to keep peace. As I fell asleep, I decided, this Christmas changes. No silent disrespect. No unthanked help. If they can't see my worth, I'll show it. Conflict if needed, some ties break to mend. I pulled up to my parents' suburban house at 4 p.m. sharp on Christmas, trunk full of wrapped gifts. The colonial home looked festive, white lights framing it, wreath on the door, candles in windows. Same setup since childhood, unchanged. I breathed deep, grabbed the first batch of presents, and headed to the door. Laughter inside made me waver. Part of me craved real inclusion, not just tolerance on the edges. Dad opened the door, eyes warm with real joy. "Samantha, you're here," he said, moving aside. He wore his old green reindeer sweater from Mom, at least 5 years old. "Merry Christmas, Dad," I smiled, adjusting packages for a hug. "Help with the rest of the gifts?" "More in the car." I'd built a tight circle of friends who truly saw me. Lisa, my college bestie, lived in my building, and we shared weekly dinners. My studio team felt like a second family, celebrating birthdays and wins together, always there through tough times. I found joy in new hobbies. Wednesday evenings, I took pottery classes, loving the calm of shaping clay with my hands. Once a month, I volunteered at a youth art program, helping kids from tough backgrounds find their creative voice. I also started hiking, spending weekends on trails outside the city with Thomas or friends. But despite my full life, a part of me still ached for my family's approval. I wanted them to see me for who I was, not the useless, middle child they'd labeled me as years ago. That longing trapped me in a toxic pattern. I became the family's financial safety net, always ready to help. It started small, a loan for Dad's car repairs. Then I covered part of Julia's tuition when my parents said they were strapped. The requests grew bigger and more frequent, especially from my mother, who handled the family's money. The biggest burden was Michael, though no one else knew. Despite his polished image, my brother made bad financial choices, risky investments, lavish spending. 3 years ago, he begged for help, facing bankruptcy and losing his home. I cleared his urgent debts and set up a repayment plan, but he barely paid me back. I also funded family events, like holiday dinners or birthdays, letting my parents take the credit. When Dad needed a suit for a cousin's wedding, I bought it quietly, letting him think it was a bargain. When Mom wanted new kitchen appliances, I made them appear as a family gift, though I paid alone. I gave without fanfare, but my family took it for granted. The more I helped, the more they expected it. My mother acted like my support was owed, not a choice, as if it was payback for raising me. Even with my success, I felt small around them. I'd shrink back to that invisible middle child, craving their approval. I downplayed my achievements to avoid seeming boastful, took their criticism silently, and buried my hurt to keep the peace. It was draining. Thomas often asked why I put up with it, why I went to family events that left me empty, why I kept bailing them out without thanks. I'd say they were family, and I cared, but each year, their dismissals and demands wore me down. My resentment grew, and my self-respect demanded change. The financial dynamic with my family turned toxic over time. What began as occasional help became an expected, unacknowledged crutch. My mother's calls had a pattern, she'd ask about my life with no interest, then sigh about some money issue. The roof's leaking again, or Dad's meds cost more now. She never asked for cash outright, just hinted heavily until I offered, letting her pretend she hadn't asked. After I helped, she'd brush it off. That's what family does, or worse, it's the least you owe us for raising you. No one said thank you or recognized my sacrifice. My help was treated as a duty, not a gift. Michael called with temporary money troubles, promising to repay me next month for years. Sarah didn't ask directly but grumbled about kid costs until I bought gifts or funded their education. Julia assumed I'd cover her emergencies, like car repairs or rent after overspending. Family gatherings grew harder to bear. Every holiday brought subtle jabs and comparisons that left me feeling small. Last Thanksgiving was brutal. Minutes after I arrived, Mom eyed me and asked if I'd given up on dating since I came alone. I mentioned my serious relationship with Thomas, but she called him just another boyfriend and wondered why I couldn't close the deal like Sarah. At dinner, I tried sharing news about a big new client, but Mom cut me off to ask Sarah about her kids' school. My moment was ignored. Later, while washing dishes with my mother, she said it was probably for the best I stuck to my little drawing business, since I wasn't cut out for motherhood anyway. I left with a migraine and vowed to skip Christmas. But as December neared, guilt and hope clashed inside me. Maybe this time it'd be different. Maybe they'd finally see me. At Mom's birthday dinner in early December, the same old routine played out. We ate at a pricey restaurant I paid for, but it was billed as Dad's treat. Mom talked non-stop about my siblings' successes, ignoring mine. When I brought up my feature in a national design magazine, she switched to Julia's new internship, her third try at a career. As Christmas neared, my anxiety spiked. I thought up excuses to skip it but decided to go after talking with Thomas. "Stand up for yourself, Angie," he said gently but firmly. "You're not that insecure teen anymore. You're a successful business owner who deserves respect." "They won't change," I argued, pacing our living room. "Going means more of the same." "Then change how you react," he replied. "You hope they'll see your worth, but show them you know it, whether they do or not." His advice lingered as Christmas approached. I spent hours picking thoughtful, pricey gifts, wrapping them flawlessly, hoping the packaging would win their appreciation. I booked hair and makeup, picked an outfit screaming success and confidence, ditching my usual blend-in style. The day before Christmas, Michael called, the last straw. He sounded tense, whispering like he was hiding. "Angie, hate to ask now, but I'm in a bind," he started. I shut my eyes, knowing what followed. "The bank's threatening foreclosure unless I pay by year's end. Need $15,000 to hold them off till my February commission." $15,000 wasn't small, even for me. It was expansion money for my studio. "That's big, Michael," I said cautiously. "You haven't repaid the last loan." "I know," he rushed. "But this is my house. Where'd Diane and the kids go? Please, I'm begging. Don't tell Mom and Dad, they think I'm thriving." After a pause, I agreed to send it, tallying more unlikely to return cash. Hanging up, I called Lisa to vent. "Stop being their ATM," she said straight after hearing. "They're adults, Samantha. Let them handle their choices." "But let Michael's family go homeless?" "Maybe real fallout would push better decisions," she shot back. "When will you demand respect? They take endlessly without basic thanks." That night, prepping for bed, Lisa's words mixed with Thomas's. I finally faced my buried anger. Tired of being the family wallet, of dismissed success, of shrinking to keep peace. As I fell asleep, I decided, this Christmas changes. No silent disrespect. No unthanked help. If they can't see my worth, I'll show it. Conflict if needed, some ties break to mend. I pulled up to my parents' suburban house at 4 p.m. sharp on Christmas, trunk full of wrapped gifts. The colonial home looked festive, white lights framing it, wreath on the door, candles in windows. Same setup since childhood, unchanged. Dad's eyebrows lifted at the pile of gifts, but he nodded and helped me grab the rest from the car. We chatted about the mild weather and traffic, steering clear of anything deep or personal. Inside, the house smelled of roasting turkey and pine. A big Christmas tree towered in the living room, gifts stacked high around it. The mantel held family photos, mostly Michael's family and Sarah's kids, with just one small frame of my decade-old graduation picture. Mom came out of the kitchen, drying her hands on a holly-embroidered apron. Her sharp eyes scanned my designer dress, styled hair, and armful of packages. "You're finally here," she said, implying I was late, though I arrived right on time. "Put those under the tree and say hi." Sarah brought her famous sweet potato casserole, and Michael's talking about his new sales territory. No Merry Christmas, no warmth, no nod to my effort. I swallowed the familiar pain, nodded, and placed my gifts under the tree as Dad slipped back to the living room. The next hour was a blur of awkward hellos and forced small talk. Sarah, perfectly dressed, gave me a quick hug before diving back into her daughter's dance recital story. Michael slapped my shoulder with his usual bravado, but worry lines creased his eyes. His wife, Diane, gave me a warm smile, one of the few genuine moments. Julia, back from another college try, barely glanced up from her phone. When we opened gifts, my carefully chosen presents got lukewarm thanks. Dad's pricey leather briefcase earned a polite thank you, but I doubted he knew its worth. Mom glanced at her spa package and designer scarf before setting them aside to manage the gift opening. The rare collectibles I found from my siblings got brief surprise but were quickly eclipsed by other presents. At dinner, I was seated at the table's far end, far from Mom at the head and Dad at the other end. The placement stung. Michael and Sarah sat near our parents with their families, Julia by Mom, leaving me alone with my 10-year-old nephew. The table gleamed with Mom's best china and crystal glasses, sparkling under the chandelier. The turkey was golden, surrounded by stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and Sarah's prized sweet potato dish near Mom. Talk flowed around me like I wasn't there. Mom grilled Michael about his job, nodding as he bragged about new clients, ignoring his financial mess we all knew about. When he mentioned a lavish summer vacation, I sipped my wine to keep quiet about his recent loan plea. Sarah took over, sharing her kids' successes and her volunteer work at their fancy school. Mom glowed, chiming in with praise and questions about Sarah's fundraiser. Then Mom turned to me. "Samantha, you should volunteer," she said. "It'd get you out, meeting people, instead of being glued to your computer." Before I could mention my work with kids' art programs, Sarah cut in. "Mom, Samantha's busy with her design stuff," she said, like my career was a hobby. "Not everyone has time for volunteering." I sipped my wine, recalling my vow to speak up. "Actually, I volunteer twice a month with an arts program for low-income kids," I said calmly. "My studio also donates design work to nonprofits." A brief pause followed, then Mom said, "That's nice," and turned to Julia. "Tell us about your new internship, dear." Julia rambled about her unpaid magazine gig, one she'd already told me she hated. Mom and Dad hung on her every word, asking questions like it was the night's biggest news. During a rare quiet moment, I spoke up. "My studio was featured in Design Quarterly last month," I said casually. "A 4-page spread on our Clearwater Technologies rebrand." "Is that some online magazine?" Mom asked, brushing it off. "No, it's a top print publication in design," I corrected. "It's a big deal." "Speaking of achievements," Mom said, turning away, "Sarah, Did you tell Samantha about Chloe's honor roll? My news was ignored again. The sting hit, but I reminded myself their approval didn't define my success. As dessert arrived, Michael surprised me. Wasn't Clearwater Technologies that big software firm? I saw their new look. Your work, Angie. Caught off guard, I nodded. Yeah, we redid their visual identity and interface. 6-month project. That's awesome, Angie, he said, using my old nickname. They're huge. Thanks, I said, warmed by his rare praise. Mom frowned. Can't imagine they paid much for colors and fonts, she said. Who wants coffee with pie? Heat rose in my face. Actually, Mom, it was a strategic rebrand that boosted their engagement by 40%. The contract was worth over $200,000. Silence hit the table. Dad's eyebrows shot up. Sarah froze mid-bite. Julia set her phone down. Mom's face tightened. No need to exaggerate, Samantha, she said sharply. Graphic designs barely above school posters. I'm not exaggerating, I said firmly. My business employs 7 full-time staff and makes over $500,000 a year. Mom's fork clinked loudly on her plate. Her eyes narrowed. If you're so successful, why live alone in a tiny apartment? Why no husband or kids like Sarah? Success isn't just money, Samantha. You've always been a dreamer, exaggerating. I froze, her words like a slap. My condo's over 2,000 square feet, Mom. You've never seen it. She waved me off. Point is, at your age, you should have more than drawings and a fancy place. Sarah has 3 grandkids. Michael's in a real career. Even Julia's finding her path. Tension gripped the room. Dad cleared his throat. Nancy, maybe not now. But Mom leaned in, her voice low and cutting. Let's be honest, Samantha. You've always been off in your own world. We tried guiding you to a normal life, but you chose this artsy path. No husband, no kids, just clients who drop you in a heartbeat. I stared, breathless. Her words distilled years of dismissal into one brutal moment. This was who she was. They all were. My success wouldn't change that. She pressed on, voice final. Truth is, you're the most useless child we have. Her words hung heavy. Michael stared at his plate. Sarah squirmed. Dad half stood, mouth open, silent. Julia's eyes widened in shock. Something snapped inside me, not my spirit, but the silence I'd held for years. I stood slowly, napkin falling to the floor, chair scraping loudly in the quiet. I met Mom's gaze, unafraid. My voice was clear. Then stop calling me for money. The room went dead silent. Mom's face paled, her mouth parting, no words coming. Her usual control shattered. Dad half stood, confusion and alarm mixing in his face. Samantha, what do you mean? He asked, though his tone hinted he knew. Michael wouldn't look up. Diane glanced between us, realization dawning, her eyes landing on Michael with unspoken questions. Sarah sat frozen, fork midair, eyes wide. Her husband grabbed her hand, lost in the sudden shift. Julia broke first, tears brimming. Angie, she whispered, sounding like a kid. I wasn't done. Years of buried pain poured out. Let me tell you what useless is, I said, voice growing stronger. It's not building a thriving business from scratch. It's not paying for Dad's car repairs last year. It's not covering half of Julia's tuition when you said you couldn't afford it. I faced Michael, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Useless isn't the one who saved your house from foreclosure 3 times, Michael, $15,000 just yesterday, plus the $27,000 you still owe me. Diane gasped, turning to him. Michael, is that true? You said your boss gave you an advance. Michael looked up, shame written on his face. Angie, you swore you wouldn't tell, he mumbled. No, I enabled your lies about being successful, I said, firm but not cruel. I've covered for all of you for years, pretending everything's fine when it's not. I turned to Mom, her shock turning to anger. You've called me monthly for 5 years, Mom, asking for money. The new fridge? I bought it. Dad's heart meds not covered by insurance? Me. Last spring's roof repairs? Me too. I've given over $100,000 in 3 years, and not once have I heard a thank you. No one admits my little drawing business keeps this family going. Dad sank into his chair, pale. Samantha, I didn't know. Your mom said savings or insurance covered it. Of course you didn't, I said, softening a bit. No one was supposed to. It was our family's secret that the useless daughter bailed everyone out. Sarah finally spoke. You never said anything. You made it seem like no big deal when we needed help. I wanted to be valued, I admitted, feeling exposed. I thought if I was useful enough, you'd see me. Really see me. But that was never going to happen, was it? Their stunned faces met my calm gaze. The truth was out. I run a business with 7 employees. I own my home outright. I have savings, investments, and a retirement plan. I volunteer, have great friends, and a loving partner you've never met. I'm thriving. But here, that doesn't matter because I didn't follow your path. Mom's jaw tightened, her composure back. You can't air our private business like this, she said coldly. Helping family is what family does. It doesn't mean you get to rub it in our faces. No, Mom, I said. Family supports each other emotionally too. The family celebrates successes and helps through failures. Family sees each other for who they are, not who you want them to be. I took a deep breath, tired but determined. I've spent years chasing your approval, your love, by fixing everything. I see now that won't work. You don't want a successful daughter. You want one who obeys. Michael's financial mess rippled through the room. Diane whispered to him, hurt and betrayed. You said we were fine, she said. We just got a new car. We have to look successful, Michael hissed. Everyone expects it. Is that why we're drowning in debt? Diane snapped, voice rising. To impress your parents? Sarah shifted, uneasy. Samantha, I didn't know you were supporting everyone, she said softly. You should have spoken up. Would it have changed anything? I asked her. Would you have respected me instead of looking down on me? Would Mom have stopped comparing me to you? Sarah looked ashamed. I didn't mean to make you feel less, she said. I guess I got used to being the favorite. Julia was crying. Did you really pay half my tuition? She asked, tears falling. Mom and Dad said they took a second mortgage. I nodded, feeling for my little sister, caught in this mess too. They didn't want you to know. They hid that our family's finances aren't what they seem. Dad stood slowly, shoulders heavy. Samantha's right, he said, voice firm. We haven't been honest with each other, or fair to her. He looked at Mom, who stared back, stunned. Nancy, she deserves an apology. Mom wasn't having it. This is absurd, she snapped. If Samantha chose to help, that was her choice. No one forced her. If she feels unappreciated, maybe giving with strings attached isn't real giving. Her words confirmed it, no apology, no change, not now, maybe never. I nodded, accepting it. You're right, Mom, I said. No one forced me. I helped because I love this family, despite it all. But I'm choosing differently now. I left the table, heading upstairs to the guest room for my bag. It was frozen in time, same purple bedspread, old band posters, a shrine to a version of me long gone. I grabbed my things, hearing raised voices below as my words shook the family. Guilt tugged at me for disrupting Christmas, but relief was stronger. The truth was out. It was their choice to face it or not, not mine. Downstairs, Dad stopped me in the hall. "Samantha, don't go like this," he pleaded, voice cracking. "We can talk. We can fix this." I looked at him, feeling compassion. "Dad, one talk won't fix decades. I need space. We all need time to process this." "I didn't know," he said softly. "The money, your feelings, I knew things weren't right, but not like this." "I know," I said gently. "That's part of it. You've all ignored our family's reality for too long." He nodded, then hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. I should have said it more. I hugged back, torn between love, sadness, and relief. Tears glistened in his eyes, matching mine. From the dining room, Mom's voice rose, indignant. Michael and Diane argued in sharp whispers. Sarah tried to calm things, failing. It was the sound of our family's facade crumbling. Without another word, I walked to the front door, stepped into the cold December night, and shut it firmly. In my car, I gripped the wheel, letting out a shaky breath that carried years of strain. Driving away, Christmas lights blurred through tears, but I felt something new, not regret or anger, but freedom. For the first time, I'd spoken my truth, unapologetic. Whatever came next, I'd face it as my true self, not the role they wanted. Driving back to my condo felt surreal. Christmas lights sparkled on houses and shops, holiday tunes hummed on the radio, but my world had flipped upside down. Tears came in waves, not just sadness, but a release of emotions I'd bottled up for years. At home, I sat in my car for a few minutes, bracing myself to face the fallout. My phone buzzed nonstop in my purse, but I wasn't ready to look. Part of me wanted to toss it into the snow and walk away. Finally, I dragged myself upstairs, dropped my keys and bag, and collapsed on the sofa. I checked my phone, 17 missed calls, 23 texts, a flood of family chaos. I called Thomas first. He picked up instantly, worry in his voice. "Angie, you okay? You were supposed to call after dinner." I tried to explain, but my voice cracked, tears flowing again. "I did it, Thomas. I stood up to them. But it was worse than I thought." He listened as I spilled the night's drama, Mom's cruel words, my fiery response, my quick exit. When I finished, he paused, then said, "I'm so proud of you." That took real courage. "It doesn't feel brave," I admitted. "It feels like I ruined Christmas and my family." "Maybe it needed ruining," he said gently. "Sometimes things have to break to rebuild stronger." We talked for nearly an hour, his calm words helping me sort through the emotional storm. He offered to come over, but I said no, needing time alone to think. After a hot shower and fresh clothes, I faced my phone again, choosing to read texts instead of listening to voicemails. I wasn't ready for their voices. Julia's texts hit first, raw and emotional. "Angie, you okay? I didn't know about the tuition. I'm so sorry. Call me. I love you. I feel awful." I was too caught up in my own world to see how Mom treated you. Her honesty didn't surprise me, she was the least tied to our family's toxic patterns. Michael sent 2 short texts, stiff and awkward. "We need to talk privately." Diane's upset. "Thanks a lot." Typical Michael, dodging blame and focusing on damage control. Sarah's texts were longer, layered. "I'm shocked. I had no idea you were helping everyone financially." Mom's a mess. Dad took her upstairs. We've never been close, but I respect what you've done. Honestly, I've been jealous of your freedom. Jealous? Sarah, the perfect daughter, envying my unconventional life? That floored me. Dad sent one text, simple but deep: I failed you as a father. I'm sorry, Samantha. I love you. Mom's silence wasn't surprising, but it still hurt. I turned off my phone, not ready to reply, and curled up in a blanket, staring at my small Christmas tree's steady blinking lights. Morning brought sunlight and a strange lightness. Despite the chaos, I'd slept deeply, like a weight had lifted. I made coffee and checked my phone again. Julia had sent a long email overnight. She said she'd always admired me but followed Mom's dismissive lead. She apologized for taking my help for granted and vowed to notice our family's dynamics. Her words showed a maturity I hadn't expected. Dad's email was longer than his text. He and Mom argued late, he said, with him finally calling out her treatment of me. He owned his silence and asked to rebuild our bond honestly. He said he was proud of me, words I'd craved for years. Michael's surprise wasn't a message but a $5,000 bank transfer, memo, first repayment, more coming. It was a fraction of his debt, but the gesture meant more than the cash. For weeks, I kept my distance, processing. I answered some messages, setting new boundaries. I told Julia we'd talk after the holidays. I thanked Michael for the payment but refused to move past it. I set a January coffee date with Dad, somewhere neutral, away from Mom. Thomas was my anchor, supporting me without steering. It's your journey, he said. I'm here, whatever you choose. At our weekly dinner, Lisa was blunt. About damn time, she toasted, grinning. To Samantha, who found her voice. I'm not sure I did right, I said, blowing up Christmas like that. Right and easy aren't the same, she replied. They were comfy in their reality while you suffocated. They needed the shake-up. In January, I started therapy with Dr. Rivera, a family dynamics expert. She helped me see my outburst didn't cause the dysfunction, it just exposed it. Your mom shows narcissistic traits, she said. She built a system where everyone had roles to fit her perfect family image. You broke that by refusing your role. What's next? I asked. It's up to you and them, she said. You can't control their reactions, but you can choose what relationships you'll accept. With Dr. Rivera's help, I set firm boundaries. No more automatic financial aid. I expected respect and recognition for my achievements. No more taking criticism or comparisons. Most importantly, I stopped shrinking to please others. It wasn't smooth. There were tough talks, setbacks, doubts. Mom clung to her story that I was selfish, oversensitive. But small changes started with others. Michael, without my safety net, faced his finances with Diane. They downsized and got a financial counselor. Our bond stayed tense, but a new honesty felt like a step forward. Sarah and I grew closer, free from Mom's comparisons. We found common ground, and she admitted her perfect life had struggles. I opened up about my business highs and lows. Julia went back to school, more focused, not expecting handouts. She visited my studio often, curious about my work, even asking for career tips. Our age gap faded as we connected as adults. Dad changed most. He stood up to Mom, refusing to enable her. He visited my studio, met Thomas, and showed real interest in my life. He admitted he'd always admired my creativity but was too scared of Mom to say it. Through this family shift, I focused on my growth. My business soared, my bond with Thomas deepened, and I gained confidence in once scary social settings. I spoke at design conferences, mentored young designers, and taught at a local art college. The biggest change was inside me. I stopped tying my worth to family approval. I didn't need to earn love with money or achievements. I finally believed I was successful, capable, and worthy, just as I was. When Thomas proposed in late spring, I said yes with pure joy, unbothered by family opinions. We planned a small wedding, true to our values, not anyone else's rules. When questions came about invites and family roles, I chose what felt right to me, not what avoided fights. By summer, I hadn't spoken to Mom in over 6 months. Dad said she was still mad about my public family shaming, refusing to own her part in our toxic dynamic. I hoped for peace but accepted it might not happen on healthy terms for me. The surprise wasn't the pain of distance, I expected that, but the relief. Without chasing Mom's approval, I had energy for people and passions that truly made me happy. Cutting out toxic moments opened space for joyful ones, leaving me calmer than I'd been in years. As Christmas neared, I felt both nervous and hopeful. I'd kept some contact with family but wasn't sure about the annual gathering. Thomas left the choice to me, promising support either way. After deep talks with Dr. Rivera, I decided to go, but differently. I'd stay in a hotel, not my childhood home. I'd bring Thomas, demanding respect from my partner of 4 years. Most importantly, I'd set firm boundaries and leave if they were crossed. See it as a test of your new family dynamic, Dr. Rivera said. You're not slipping back into old roles but checking if healthier ones can exist. On Christmas Eve, we arrived at my parents' house. The vibe was different. Dad greeted us warmly, hugging Thomas and me with real affection. Julia rushed up, beaming. Sarah gave a shy but genuine smile, her family behind her. Mom stood back, her face neutral. She'd agreed, via Dad, to my terms, no jabs at my choices, no career slights, and respect for Thomas. She was sticking to it, though her stiff stance showed it wasn't easy. Welcome home, Samantha, she said formally, shaking Thomas's hand. Welcome, Thomas. We've heard a lot about you. It wasn't warm, but it was polite, enough for now. The evening felt awkward but not hostile. Michael and Diane arrived last, their simpler gifts and clothes showing their scaled-back life. Michael hugged me, whispering, "Thank you," without explaining why. Dinner was quieter than past years. Talk was fairer, giving everyone a chance to share. When I mentioned a big new client from my studio, I got questions and congrats, not topic switches. Thomas shared about his architecture work, and people listened with interest. Mom stayed mostly silent, speaking to manage the meal or answer questions. I caught her watching me, her look a mix of curiosity and confusion, like I was a stranger in her house. After dinner, as others went for coffee and dessert, Mom asked me to help in the kitchen. Cautious but open, I followed her into her domain. We worked quietly, me rinsing dishes, her packing leftovers. Then she spoke, her voice softer than usual. You look good, Samantha. Your business must be thriving. It is, I said simply. Thanks for noticing. Silence hung heavy with unsaid words. She shut the fridge and faced me. I'm seeing someone, she said. A therapist, she added fast, seeing my surprise. Mom, who called therapy weak, was in therapy. That's great to hear, I said. I don't buy everything she says, Mom went on, a bit defensive. But she's made me rethink things. Expectations, control. She smoothed a dish towel carefully. Why did I need everyone to fit certain roles? I stayed quiet, sensing she was building to something hard. I was raised to think there's one right way to live, she said. College, marriage, kids, in that order. Success was money and status. Anything else was a failure. She glanced at me. Your different path felt like you rejected everything I valued, everything I taught you. It wasn't rejection, Mom, I said softly. It was me finding my way. She nodded stiffly. My therapist said something like that. Your choices are about you, not me. She gave a dry laugh. Apparently, I make everything about me. Her self-awareness shocked me. I didn't know what to say, so I waited. I won't apologize for wanting what I thought was best, she said, chin up. But I can admit I was rigid and said hurtful things I shouldn't have. It wasn't a full apology, but for Mom, it was huge. I felt validated, hurt, and cautiously hopeful. Thanks for saying that, I said. It means a lot. She nodded sharply, like closing a deal. Your Thomas seems solid, she said, shifting gears. Responsible. He is, I said. He's also creative, supportive, and makes me laugh daily. A small smile crossed her face. Good. That's good. She paused. I'd like to see your studio sometime, if that's okay. It was a small gesture, but big for her. I'd like that, I said honestly. We joined the others in the living room, the air between us lighter, if not fully clear. Thomas squeezed my hand, questioning. I squeezed back, signaling things were okay. The night ended calmly, no drama or hurt like past gatherings. Leaving for our hotel, we got real hugs and promises to meet soon that felt genuine. In our room, Thomas asked about my talk with Mom. I shared, and he nodded. Not a tearful reunion, he said. No, I laughed, but for Mom, admitting she might be wrong is huge. I never thought I'd see it. Think things will change, he asked. I thought it over. They already have. Not perfectly, but enough for a new kind of relationship, one where I can be me, and they can be themselves. In the months after, that fragile balance grew. Mom visited my studio, trying hard to get my work. We started monthly lunches, sometimes awkward but more real. She'd never fully get me, but she was respecting my choices, and I was learning not to take her limits personally. My siblings and I grew closer in ways I never expected. Michael finally paid back most of what he owed me, not just with money but with real gratitude and respect. Sarah and I bonded over our shared passion for sustainable living, finding connection beyond just family ties. Julia, fresh out of college, interned at my studio and surprised me with her knack for marketing. Dad changed the most after that tough Christmas confrontation. He became my biggest cheerleader, proudly showing off my design awards in his office. He introduced me as my daughter, the successful entrepreneur, to his friends. Through countless small gestures, he showed he valued me for who I am. That year taught me lessons I'll carry forever. Speaking my truth, no matter how hard, hurts less than hiding who I am. Real love doesn't demand I shrink to fit others' insecurities. Family ties can shift and grow as we do. Breaking old patterns was key to creating new ones. That confrontation, scary as it was, shook up the unhealthy dynamic we'd been stuck in for years. The short-term pain led to deeper healing we wouldn't have found otherwise. At the next Christmas dinner, hosted at my condo with everyone pitching in, I felt true peace. We weren't perfect, tensions and old habits still crept in. But we were all trying to build something better. Mom caught my eye across the table and gave me a small, real smile, something I couldn't have imagined a year before. I realized sometimes you have to risk losing the family you know to find the family you deserve. The bravest act is refusing to accept what's unacceptable, even when it feels like betrayal. As I raised my glass to toast, I looked at the faces I'd fought to be seen by. The real victory was recognizing my own worth, standing tall in who I am, no matter what others thought I should be. Have you ever had to stand up to family who didn't see your true value? How did you handle it? What boundaries did you set to protect your self-respect? Share your stories in the comments below. If this resonated, Please like and subscribe for more real stories about family and growth. Thank you for reading, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing is being unapologetically you.